Yeah. So at the moment, actually, the concept of the metaverse is overestimated. I think it's very much overstated, as if it is the imminent, as if it's coming right now. So without a doubt, I think we shall become immersed in the metaverse in the long term. There is, however, a digital gap that exists right now, digital divide. So the winner takes all principle is still in effect in metaphors. So on the metaphors, so I'm more or less in a favor of the normalization theory, as you know. Then I'm, of the equalization theory. Yeah. When it comes to the mice sector, I'm not sure what mice stand for. Mice is abbreviation, meetings, incentive tools, conventions, exhibitions. So new technologies such as metaverse would alter governance, particularly in the sector of the mice, like a government news briefing, like a meet-up event, and NFT, the non-fungible token, NFT certificate are just a couple of examples how the metaverse might be used to perform public service. And additionally, it might be conceivable to imbibe the elderly and handicapped citizens in the metaverse as a form of virtual exercise and cognitive treatment. So this is a brief, like this is kind of the brief from my head. And you mentioned about actually the Seoul's case, right? Seoul. Yeah, actually we had the presidential election recently, right? So it's a little bit difficult, to make observations about the government citizen involvement in South Korea because of the political climate. Like the Conservative Party was, victorious in the most recent presidential election. And, the need of the shifting from cross the decision-making method to an open decision-making model has been underlined by progressive government in the past. But however, the previous government did not appear to be as eager to involve citizens in the co-creation of policy solutions as they had promised during the election campaigns. And therefore, consequently, we must wait and see how the conservative administration deals with this situation. So that's actually the current situation between government and citizens, in South Korea. And Seoul, actually, as you know, the Seoul is the capital, right? And so Seoul is among the provincials, and Seoul expressed a strong desire to be the first major metropolitan government to enter the metaverse. But we actually say, Seoul is strictly regarded as local government, but functions as a part of a national government. As a result, the situation of Seoul should not be regarded as representative of local effort in Korea. Due to the fact that Seoul Metropolitan has the largest amount of budget in all provinces of Korea. So Seoul is likely to make a variety of public services, as you outlined, and cultural events available in the metaverse, but should not be regarded as like the general case, compared to the other, province in South Korea. So this is now the transition period at the moment.
Transition period.
Transition period. And so the formerly liberal and progressive government, and then in the new government is the totally opposite to the former government, right? And so it's very difficult to say, but in terms of metaphors, immediate previous president established a vast budget known as the Digital New Deal, under which numerous local governments competed against one another in order to receive subsidy from the national government. So the metaverse program has established itself as a leading Polish program, flagship program in the culture and tourism sectors over this period of time. That is why you have read the newspaper article about Seoul. Yeah. So in order to get the national subsidy, the name of existing budget, for example, smart cities, smart industrial complexes, smart industrial clusters, or three-dimensional mapping development, GIS tools, and online games, and the creation of tourism homepages and mobile applications. Like these are existing budgets, but these has been modified several times during the last moment of the previous government. During this process, metaverse popped up and then kind of served as the umbrella concept. I see your point. So what kind of opportunities and advantages, right? I think the metaverse hold for the government. I believe the government can benefit from a number of chances, advantages from metaverse. First and foremost, metaverse has the potential to be another social media platform for government to interact with its population. So it is possible to transmit not only textual, but also multimode, graphic, interactive messages. Like the use of the AI avatar in the metaverse, for example, can partially substitute for one-on-one phone call, like the 311, and the great and increased frequency of communication between the government and the citizen will, in the long run, strengthen public trust in a society, because there are more communication channels as metaverse has become, widespread. Yeah, so communication and trust, and interactivity, Yeah, that's what I mentioned, that is the the welfare sector, like the handicapped
welfare
people,
sector.
Handicapped peoples and elderly peoples, they can benefit from the simulated environment. The using the goggle and then haptics, using goggle for eyes and then haptics, for hands. Yeah, people they can enter into the virtual reality, and they can exercise and they can practice as if they were physically fully shaped. This kind of things. That's what I mentioned in the social welfare sector. Yeah, like there are some of the obstacles. So, for example, it is essential to safeguard regular or ordinary online users, against the various anti-social behaviors, such as identity theft, virtual assault, and child pornography. So on this line, a qualified or capable moderator is required in the public sector of the metaverse platform. But we are actually short of this kind of the moderate or metaverse in public sector. And in terms of Korea, like the discrepancy between Seoul and the other 15 areas of Korea is very substantial. It's very much polarized. So many of the provinces, small villages, and cities are on the verge of extinction. On the other side, metaverse, today's metaverse are very much different from the second life in early 2000. I'm not sure you know about the second life.
What?
Yeah,
No.
second life is the first, metaverse platform. Yeah. But today's metaverse are very much different from the second life because current metaverse emphasize the digital twin. So it generates virtual world by constructing an analog and digital pair with the assistance of computing and networking technologies. So in early 2000, metaverse, like a second life, does not emphasize the digital twin. It's like isolated from reality or separated from the physical world. On the other side, current metaverse, highlight the digital twin. As a result, the metaverse platform will widen the gap between, generations and between, regions and between, geographies. Like the current metaverse is advancement of the three-dimensional, geographical mapping. So move your current office into the virtual reality. But in the early 2000, create your office very much different from your physical office. So that is the difference. So given this situation, so how to take advantage of the current metaverse. So we have for example, I might able to have some address, like a residential address on Singapore. Like I have the two addresses, right? Two addresses. So across the temporal and spatial barriers. So we can be more close, and then this kind of the thing may contribute to a sense of belongings. So also to contribute to the social harmony. So it's a pros and cons. And difference from the early metaverse. Probably the industry 4.0. Industry 4.0, that emphasized the CPS, that stand for the cyber physical system. So cyber system and physical system must be integrated. In doing so, we can build Industry 4.0 revolution. So in a similar vein, current metaverse need to be developed based upon current physical address, current physical geographies. And in that case, we could expand our governance to the online world. So this is a kind of paradigm change in this area. Yeah. Of course, government could create totally different, environment,
Yep.
From the reality. But, these days they don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a very difficult and then, legal and, right, institutional environment, right? So I think this is also related to your final questions on email, like the regulatory framework or citizen engagement or citizen education, I think. Yeah. So in my opinion, like the regulatory sandbox approach. Yeah, sandbox, we install sandbox when children plays in order to keep, children safe on the playground, right? So we need a kind of the, sandbox approach. That means, these moderators should be trained, like the by or through the government program, but these moderators should be hired by private companies that you know create or develop these metaverse, right? Yeah. And another approach I think is I'm not sure if we have heard living lab approach. Have you ever heard
No.
of living lab? Living
lab.
Yeah.
No. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Living lab is the most popular, program in Europe for recent years. Like Living Lab is the initiative that people take advantage of the digital technology to innovate society. So the Living Lab intended to use the digital technology to solve social problems in everyday living. So Living Lab has come to Korea, and then Korean government also adopted the Living Lab to solve the problems. So a voluntary community of citizens is provided to guide them in truly experiencing Meta's negative and positive effect via avatars. But in this context, you asked very specifically, who has like authority or who has to make a role of the training or providing or hiring, right? Moderators. Yeah. So like I said, generally, I think should be, this should be the regulatory sandbox approach, something like that.
Okay, so just to make sure I didn't hear you wrong. So to my answer of whom the moderator should be, you said they should be trained by government, but hired by the companies who develop the metaverse, right? So why do you say they should be trained by the government?
Which means
why not the companies themselves?
Oh yeah, company will not invest in preparing educational or training, curriculums for the moderators because companies are still very much occupied with developing platforms instead of protecting ordinary users. So government should prepare for this kind of training manuals, training resources, educational resources, right? And these resources must be shared among the possible moderators. Well, if moderators, need to pay, and then nobody will apply, right? That is why government should, make some kind of the training programs, wide, education programs for moderators.
Okay, but there's no guarantee that companies will provide or hire moderators, right?
Yeah, I understand. But private companies also, they are aware that if metaverse has the several, antisocial behaviors, and then the metaverse will not attract visitors. Yeah, they also know that. So basically, metaverse is currently as another social media platforms. So some social media, becomes very popular, and some others they disappears, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So Korea is very much different from the Singapore, because Singapore is more or less regarded as city country, right? Yeah, so the entire city is is the country as a whole. Well, for Korea, we have like the 50 million population, and 1 million or 10 million of the populations living in Seoul. So many resources are concentrated on Seoul. So that is why I said, there are big discrepancy between Seoul and then the other 15 provinces. And so that is why I said the Seoul's case must not be regarded as like the local government endeavor. Yeah, like so metaverse is virtual reality.
Yeah.
But this virtual reality has the character of the digital twin.
Yes.
It means people will be more likely to stay in the metaverse of Seoul, even though they are free to travel or to visit the other areas of South Korea. So,
yes.
So that is why, the current metaverse will, do some harm or not harm, on this, digital divide or the digital gaps. Yeah. Yeah. So as you mentioned, like the traditional digital divide lies in the users, like users' skills or access to the certain technology, right? But what I'm emphasizing here, the inbuilt environment of metaverse, inbuilt environment of metaverse. So its metaverse will be much more, be advanced, will be much more, enriched compared to the other, metaverse. Just like if you go to the Seoul, there are skyscrapers, there are nice park, and traffic is very good, and nice restaurants. So this kind of divide is new divide in the metaverse, because current metaverse, what is being built in a paradigm of digital twin. This is the some kind of a distinction between traditional gap and then metaverse gap. And another thing is, in terms of the access, the metaverse require high bandwidth. High bandwidth. It requires, a lot of the internet traffic. But telecommunication companies, internet providers, they tend to provide Seoul citizens with better accessibility than the other cities or rural areas. So in that case, the traditional accessibility divide can be modified, can be applied to the metaverse environments in a little bit different way.
Yeah,
This
I
early to talk about this issue, but there is the possibilities. Yeah, so this is the things because of what's the role of national government and provincial government. So if national government assign some subsidy to the individual provinces, okay, in this case, each individual local government have capacity to build their own metaverse. I am not sure about the Singapore. The Korea is currently national government all the time try to make the 16 provincial government to compete each other, and they distribute the money government budget to each of the 16 province, and then Seoul has all the time takes the most of the government budget. Okay, so in a different story, national government like the build entire metaverse for the whole country.
Yeah.
Like Singapore, right? In that case, national government to make a decision. If we make the metaverse that is truly similar to the physical world, or very different world from metaverse. So virtual Singapore, hey, come to the virtual Singapore. This virtual Singapore is totally different from the offline Singapore. Or it depends on the what kind of the policy intervention you take. Right? So that is what I think. Yeah, I'm not sure how much you are aware of the cryptocurrency.
Go ahead.
Yeah, metaverse is the built on the regular internet network, but as you previously stated, metaverse needed to be built on the blockchain network. Okay, so blockchain network involved cryptocurrency. But Korean government is also very much cautious in adopting cryptocurrency mediated metaverse. Because as you know, cryptocurrency is a very debating topic, right? But we needed to actually distinguish metaverse without cryptocurrency, or metaverse with cryptocurrency. So for example, existing legal law, existing legal provisions in South Korea prohibit online games to provide or to offer users cryptocurrencies. But in Philippines, a number of the youngsters, they are using they are enjoying the X Infinity. This is a cryptocurrency mediated online game, metaverse, right? So these are like existing, laws or the existing rules needed to be modified in order to facilitate adoption of the metaverse, particularly that requires blockchain and then cryptocurrency. So this we have to, you know, also think about that, you know. So why the metaverse with blockchain and, you know, and cryptocurrency? Because metaverse, in order for the metaverse to be truly decentralized, and they need the blockchain network. Okay, like in order to be centralized, metaverse can be built on a regular server and client structure. But in order to be, you know, decentralized, metaverse should be built. Why? It has to be decentralized. Decentralizing structure has more security, reliability than server-client network models. So this is going, you know, on and on. So this is also very, you know, much controversial issue in Korea as well.